Okay, today's chapter is Foundations of Organization Structure. We've discussed some parts of this in earlier chapters too. And I'm sure if you took the Management 102 Principles of Management class, you would also have had this chapter there about what is an organization structure, how does it help in organizing work, how do we create the responsibility, authority, and responsibility relationships, and how is task allocation done within organizations. You might have great people, there might be wonderful personalities, you could have motivated them, you have them organized in teams, and you've also had leaders who can guide them. See, these are all stuff that we've discussed in org behavior, right from say personality, motivation, attitudes. We've gone off to discussing work groups, teams, leadership, and applications of leadership, and we've discussed plenty of other things, including culture. So this chapter is about having these wonderful people, employees, creating an order and structure so that they can get the job done. When we define goals and organizational goals, we got to know how these tasks are allocated to individuals. And for having to do some work, we need to also support them with resources. And it also means that we need to have communication channels, whether they are downward channels or horizontal channels, communication at the same level, or top-down communication in terms of instructions, explaining the job, KPIs, or taking control or taking feedback and reports so that you want to measure the kind of progress that you have made towards achieving those goals. So structure has a lot to do with how we organize work and what it means, to structure the work in ways that we can actually be effective as an organization. So let's go and discuss that today. So learning objectives, we want to identify those elements of an organization structure, which could be, specialization, departmentalization, span of control, boundary spanning. We have line and staff authority, responsibility, relationships, plenty of other things that we will discuss today. Identify the characteristics of what's a functional structure, what's a divisional, and what's a matrix organization. Also, we want to find out what could be a virtual organization structure like the ones we see today. And there are plenty of organization structures which are centered around being team structures and circular structures where communication flows in all directions. And we also want to go and describe the effects of downsizing and organization structure and employees. We want to look at mechanistic and organic structural models. A very important thing, I believe, even in terms of exam, I would give you a question on, can you give examples for a mechanistic structure or an organic structure, and how do they actually help an organization achieve the goals? And the last one is analyzing the implications of these organizational designs or structure that they have for managers who actually are interested in having the right structure for the right organization. There are other things like what kind of structure is best suited for what specific technologies, and what kind of structures might be affected by, say, the size of the number of people in the organization itself. So there are many more things in the slides beyond just these listed learning objectives. So what are the 7 elements? This is possibly another question for your exam. The 7 elements are work specialization. And if you talk about work specialization, it simply is answering the question, to what degree are activities subdivided into separate jobs? Not everything can be done by one single person. So that means we need to have the work divided into separate jobs. Suppose I teach management, I just cannot claim I can teach finance, I can teach accounting, I can teach, information systems, I can teach everything. No, it's not going to happen that way. I might know what is finance, what is accounting, I might understand what is economics because I'm a management professor, but I'm supposed to be specializing in, say, management. All the courses that are given to me, assigned to me as a faculty, are to do with management. They could be principles of management, org behavior like this course. I could be teaching, say, knowledge management, strategic leadership capstone, or I could teach business enterprise environment. I could teach the capstone course that you might possibly take with me when you graduate, which is a business policy and strategy capstone. So anything to do with management area, that's where my specialty is, because I've done that over a number of years, and also it relates to the kind of research that I do. It's just sensible to put Prabhakar to teach management courses, because that's work specialization. I might understand finance, I might know what is account, but I'm not supposed to be teaching because that's not my specialization. So typically the question, to what degree are activities subdivided into separate jobs? Definitely management professor is a separate job when compared to an accounting professor or a finance professor. Though the job title might be still professor, there is some, activity that is very, unique to that particular job. The second one is departmentalization. On what basis will jobs be grouped together? So it's again like this. If you say school of management, why do we call it a school of management? Everything that comes under business. It could be quantitative methods, management science, it could be business statistics, business research methods, or it could be accounting information systems, HR analytics. It could be any of these courses. They're all grouped together under one school or one department, which we call as the School of Management. Again, the School of Management can have accounting department, marketing department, management department, if you want to have those departments. But if you think, okay, we don't want those departments, we'll have it as one school, that's still fine. That is a decision that pertains to structure. You want to create the school and have everybody in there because the number of faculty is huge, the number of students are large. You want to specialize and make each accounting as a separate department, finance as a separate department, marketing faculty as a separate department. You can choose to do that. That's a question that you're answering regarding organization structure. The third one is chain of command. To whom do individuals and groups report? Now the question is, you create positions where you have to have reporting relationship. My boss is the dean, so obviously I'm reporting to my dean. I don't report to my colleagues. I don't report to my subordinates. No, I report to my dean. I don't talk to the provost or the vice president of academic affairs in New York Tech. It's because there is no reporting line. The structure determines whom I talk to and whom I control or whom I supervise. Who is my team? And whom do I interact and communicate on a regular basis? Informally, I can talk to anybody. Over lunch, I can speak to the provost, I can speak to the president. That's not a problem. But formal relationship, whom do I talk to? Who actually reports to me? Whom do I report to? All that's what we call as chain of command. How many individuals can a manager efficiently and effectively direct? That's the span of control. Now here I'm teaching, say, 48 students in my class, which is kind of a large class. Suppose if the number of students in this class is 150, I don't think I can be good enough to handle a 150 class via Zoom, because I'm not sure whether who is speaking, what are they talking about, what are the unique set of needs that each student has. That's the span of control. How many individuals are reporting, and how many individuals can a manager actually supervise effectively and direct them effectively. So I think New York Tech and the School of Management in this case, we have a small class size. Generally speaking, it's about 25 in each class. That's a very optimal size of a class. It's not too little, it's not too many, and that means my span of control is optimal. I know each student by their name, and I also understand what each person's requirements are, and that way I can customize my teaching and improve the learning experience of my students. The next question is centralization and decentralization. This is another element of organization structure. Where does decision-making authority lie? If many of us in the School of Management are given the authority to make decisions, it's called a decentralized structure. But if my dean makes all the decisions, let's assume he makes all the decisions, it's called centralization. I'll give an example of why the School of Management is decentralized. It's because we had global campuses. So Vancouver has their own associate dean. Abu Dhabi had their own associate dean, and China campus has their own associate dean. Now, obviously, the associate dean is not the dean who is in New York, but they are representing the dean. They do exactly what the dean does in New York, but in China or in Abu Dhabi or in Canada. So we have global campuses with associate deans, and they are representing the school and the dean. They are also taking care of the local accreditation there. So it's a very decentralized structure. And then we have many directors. The School of Management has several directors: Director of Experiential Education, Director of Student Advancement, Director of Professional Enrichment, Director of Assessment, Director of Scheduling. We have a program director for MBA, we have a program director for bachelor's programs. Now, why are so many directors required? Because it's not one person should be making all decisions, because the School of Management has a philosophy of distributed leadership, servant leadership, and therefore it is pretty much decentralized. Some organizations, some countries, extremely centralized. One person makes all the decisions, others have to simply follow. So whether you want that kind of structure or not is completely your decision when you are addressing what kind of structure is best for you. Then the next element of organization structure is formalization. To what degree will there be rules and regulations to direct employees and managers as they work? So if I'm working, and how many rules and how many norms are there? And how would you, impose those rules? How do you implement those rules? And how does it affect my work? So obviously there are certain guidelines for each, job. And if the guidelines are too many, you say the formalization is very high. If you say there is some freedom, autonomy, at the workplace, that much more flexibility, you say the formalization is low. So I can give you an example. Suppose you say workers, they do every day the same thing. They don't have to do anything different. They do every day the same thing. If they're doing the same thing, you can impose a lot of rules. Do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and step 5. Repeat that every single day. Do it fast, do it efficiently, without compromising on quality nor on your own safety. It's a very formalized kind of job for workers because their jobs are pretty simple. All that they have to be is careful with how they set up the machine, how do they process the material, also keep in mind the quality aspects, and also be very careful with safety standards. So if they did that, I mean, they don't have to worry too much every day. They're not making decisions. They are not, assessing the environment. They're not analyzing a lot of data. But if you talk of higher level jobs, when you go higher level jobs, you cannot be extremely formalized. You cannot be, standardizing everything. The amount of formalization or standardization is much lesser. Now, do individuals from different areas need to regularly interact? And that's what we call as boundary spanning. Just give me a second. So the last point on which is the element of an organization structure is called as boundary spanning. And that means how many individuals from different areas need to regularly interact. Are you interacting with, say, other departments? Are you required to interact with some of your external stakeholders like suppliers? Do you have the opportunity, or would it require, the job would require you to interact with customers and clients? So that's what is called boundary spanning. Some of us don't have such a broad spectrum of people that we might have to interact on a daily basis. But some jobs you have to have interaction with, say, university, administration. You might talk to the Senate. You might be interacting with board of trustees. You might have to interact with families, alumni, prospective students. You're interacting with high schools. Your boundary spanning increases. Remember, as you grow up in the organizational hierarchy, your boundary spans increase. Please talk more, and please make your job matter. Take on extra roles so that your boundary spanning increases. The more exposure you have, the more involvement and engagement you have beyond your own department, the greater is the chance for your growth and success. When we start off, we think, okay, I'll go to my office, I'll go and do my job. This is exactly what my KPIs are, my job description is. I don't have to do extra things. I mean, we all start like that. Even I started off like that, very introverted, oh, okay, I'll go do this job and that's it. No, but the more responsibilities you take, the more proactive you are, the more versatile you are, I think the greater is the chance that you will grow in the organization. You will have bigger positions, bigger titles, greater responsibilities. And with greater responsibilities come greater learning and plenty of rewards and recognition as well. So I think boundary spanning is a great thing. uh, find yourself a job that has a broader spectrum of interaction. I know I'm talking of, see, most of us think, what are the skills required? What are the job responsibility? What are the tasks that I have to perform? And do I have the skills that are required for the job performance? Most of us think this way. But you might want to ask yourself, how many people am I interacting? How many departments do I coordinate with? And what kind of roles do I play? Think broader. If you did that, you're answering this question called boundary spanning. A broader boundary span, the better it is for you. This is a personal advice I'm trying to pull off. Now, each of those 7 elements are discussed again. I've explained all of them, but it's not a bad idea. I can repeat some of them. Work specialization, I was telling you, how do we, divide the labor or work into separate activities? Why do we do that? Repetition. Suppose if Prabhakar has taught this course for the last 20 years. I mean, imagine I can teach that really well because of repetition. And it also relates to my current research work. I do plenty of research in leadership, employee engagement, perceived organizational support, organization structure. I do a lot of work in strategy. And that's why that makes it so much easier for me to teach. I can add value because of repetition. That's why work specialization is an important thing. Check the chat. Okay. Then training for specialization. Sometimes you might want to train your, say, workers. If you train them to become specialized in something, quality is much better. They will make fewer mistakes, errors are lesser, optimal utilization of resources is possible because you train them for that. My boss trained me for accreditation, for example. So I know what the standards are and what the tables are required and what kind of documentation is required, how to kind of make those reports. That's a training that I went through from my boss. Increasing efficiency through invention. Because you're so good with something, you have a very good chance that you can be very inventive in those areas. If I do 10 different things, where is the chance I understand that particular activity, all the 10 activities really well? I cannot innovate, I cannot be inventive. But if I do something regularly, continuously, I become an expert in that field, the greater is the chance that I can explore and be very creative in that area. Henry Ford, that example of Henry Ford, a long time ago, Henry Ford said, you can buy any color car as long as it is black. Because there was, it's an assembly line processing. They just kept manufacturing black color cars during the old days. You didn't have too much of customization, it completely specialization. Just keep on producing cars of the same model, paint them all in black because you don't have to worry about changing the color, changing the shape, changing the engine. No, it's the same engine, the same standard model, black color. He said you can buy any color car as long as it is black. The old days, but now it's also customized. Every person can pick what color they want. They can change the interiors. The look of the car itself can be modified. Plenty of customization, replacing specialization. The second element which we discussed also, this is an interesting graph. If you look at the graph, if you have no specialization, your productivity is low. When your work specialization is low, imagine you're teaching this course for the first time. Your effect or influence on students is much low. But as you teach it second time, third time, fourth time, fifth and sixth and whatever, 20th time, your productivity has gone up because you're very confident. You brought in a lot of research, you give plenty of examples, you connect with students better. I'm just giving you my example. But that doesn't increase forever. At some point of time, boredom might come, my efficiencies might have reached its full potential. And that's what we call as impact of human diseconomies. And my performance or productivity keeps sliding down. It doesn't increase to infinity. It doesn't keep on increasing that way. It doesn't go that way. It stops somewhere and then it starts going down because people get old, they get bored of doing the same thing. They're not willing to put the same energy in research. They're not going to update their knowledge. And so their effectiveness, productivity slowly falls off. And that is when you should realize as a manager, change him into another job. Don't let his productivity or her productivity go down because you're figuring out they're not being challenged enough. There is nothing much to learn for them and they're feeling bored and their productivity is falling off. put them in another job rotation. You put them to another job, they feel the interest to learn more, experiment, understand, and contribute and get recognized. So specialization, good for you. The productivity definitely increases, but at a certain point, it stops increasing and it starts going down because human diseconomies set in. Any questions on this graph?
No.
We talked about other functions like the elements of the structure, which is departmentalization. You can create departments based on functions. I was explaining to you that you can create a department on marketing, department for accounting, finance. That's functions. You could create departments by the type of product or service. Suppose you're a banking organization. Can you have industrial banking sales versus retail banking sales? You and my bank accounts, yours and mine, they are retail bank accounts. So you could have a department which takes care of individual bank accounts like us, but you might have a separate department that takes care of all industrial bank accounts, small scale industry, medium enterprises, large institutions that borrow from banks. You could have a department for, say, car loans, or you can have a different department for home loans. So based on which product and how much is the demand and how much of specialization is required, you also can create different departments. You can create departments by, say, Americas, North and South America as a separate department, which takes care of this area, region. You can create a different department for Europe, European Union. You could create a different department for, say, Southeast Asia, one for, Middle East and North Africa. You could create something for the Far East. You could create something for, Pan-Pacific area, Australia, New Zealand and stuff. If you're a large conglomerate like Procter and Gamble or Unilever, you might follow a departmentation based on geography or territory because they literally operate in every possible country that you can think of. By process differences, see, there could be a department just for quality control. Quality control is a process. There could be a department for production because production is a process. So you can actually have departmentation based on process because each process adds value. So if you say procurement is a process, inventory control is a process, production process, packaging process, quality control process. So you can have them as processes and each process can be monitored to what amount of value it's adding to the finished product. When you bring in raw material, be careful choosing the raw material, looking at the quality of the raw material, cut down the cost of procuring the raw material. When you're putting them in the inventory, do not have too much of inventory, do not have a shortage of inventory so that you should not disrupt the production process. When you have the production process, are you following the right equipment? Do you use the right technologies? Have you trained your people to use those technologies? Do you actually monitor what kind of safety measures do you have? And quality control, do you check regularly? Is it a random check? And what are the quality standards that you apply for each of those production processes? So you can have processes and each of the process adds value to the finished product. So you can have departments which take care of these processes. Say in universities, you have registration process, enrollment process. You might have a process. You could also type of customers. I think I explained this already. You could go with retail customers versus industrial customers. I mean, departments can be made on any of these bases. Not necessarily one is better over the other. It all depends on what kind of business you do. So do you understand this concept called departmentalization? Questions? Okay, chain of command. This is an unbroken line of authority that extends from the top. So who is the person whom I'm reporting to? Who reports to whom? That's the chain of command. I don't need two bosses. Suppose I have two bosses, whom should I be listening to? Am I answering this boss, or am I doing work which she tells me? Or am I listening to another boss? Am I listening to what he tells me? I don't want to be confused. I don't want to be doing two different things, which just destroys the time and resources. I might duplicate certain works. I'm just wasting my time. So chain of command should be very clear. So that's the meaning of unity of command, that there should be one person whom everybody reports to. I mean, each individual has someone to report to, one individual they can report to. That also speaks to the authority. Why do I speak to the dean? Because the dean has authority to tell me what to do and to control what I do and to take stock of the progress that I've made. So the chain of command is less relevant today because of technology. And that means we're connected to several people, several groups. That's what's happening. And operating employees make decisions once reserved for management. So, things that used to be done by the top people, now operating people do it. It's because technology has made it that much more seamless today. Increased popularity of self-managed and cross-functional teams. See, that's what I think you should be. When you're doing your management 370 org behavior projects as teams, you should be self-managed and cross-functional, because each of you is good in marketing, somebody's good in, say, finance, somebody's good in writing, somebody's good in literature review. You're cross-functional and you're self-managed because you're responsible, you're all capable and skilled. You can figure out what's good for you. You can also decide the approaches and strategies that you must pursue. You can set performance standards and you can measure how much of progress you have made towards those performance standards. So self-managed teams have become very popular in the industry. Not every time you need a boss and a formal leader who can guide you. You could be self-managed as well because you're responsible, you're capable. And you can also be an example for cross-functional teams, because cross-functional teams bring to the table complementary skills. Many organizations still find that enforcing the chain of command is productive, just to keep control, not to let things go out of hand, and to have a uniform way of doing things. The span of control. How many people can you actually, as a manager, direct effectively? See, this is the beauty of the span of control. Look at the first pyramid. If you look at it, one person at the top has 4 people reporting to her. And then 4 people here have 16 people reporting to them. 16 people here at this level have 64 people report to them. And likewise, it goes all the way here, where at the bottom of the pyramid, you have 4,096 people report to, I don't know, any of these 1,024. So the span of control here is 4, because 1 times 4 is 4, 4 times 4 is 16, 16 times 4 is 64, and you keep multiplying till you get 4,096. But if the span of control is increased to 8 rather than 4, what happens? 1 goes to 8, 8 people reporting to 1%, then 8 times 8 is 64. So 64 people are now reporting to 8. 64 times 8 is 512. 512 people reporting to 64. And 512 times 8 is 4,096. You have these 4,096 people reporting to, any of these 512 people at the top. So if you look at it, just because they have increased the span of control to 8, you have the organization has fewer levels. How many levels are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 levels. But here in this case, because the span of control has been increased to 8, the number of levels is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So when you choose to pick a company to join, you don't want to join here, because you may go from here to here to here to here. But by the time you reach here, it might be the end of your working, life. But if you join a company like this one, the growth is very fast. It might take longer in terms of years, but at least every jump will be substantial jump, because there are only 5 jumps that you have here. But as in this case, if you join here, you have 7 times to leap. So it might take a longer time before you reach the top. And here you have a chance of 4. Suppose you're planning to be in the 2nd level. Only 4 people can be selected to be at the level 2. But in this organization at the level 2, there are 8. So your chances simply double when the span of control is wider. Did you get that? I'm gonna pick somebody and ask you to explain to me what is span of control, because you're not talking. Can I have Jackson explain me span of control?
Oh, so first, did you call me?
Yeah, Jackson, could you explain?
Yeah, sorry, my connection is kind of bad, so I have a problem hearing you. But span of control is like how many individuals can like manager direct efficiently?
Mhm. So can you tell me what's the difference between the first pyramid and the next one?
On the first pyramid is like basically the head of the organization, and each pyramid as it goes down, there's like more people that report to them. You know,
And what's the span there in the first pyramid?
the span there is 4 people report to them, and then above that and then below that is like 16 people report to the
Right.
second pyramid. What was that?
Right, right, exactly correct. And so the second span, I mean, the second pyramid, what's the span in the second pyramid?
Oh, 16.
No, its span is 8. It says here right
Oh,
away, right?
oh, so I was looking at the first one.
Yeah. So it goes from 1 to 8, 8 to 64, right? This is the second pyramid that I'm talking of. So you as an employee, you as an applicant, I think you should prefer joining the second company, which has a span of 8. Would you agree?
Yeah.
What do you tell, Chris? Which is a better option for you to join as an employee?
I would say it would likely be the second one if you want to move up.
Mhm.
However, I do think the first one, there might be better control over each individual group. So it might be better managed.
Okay. And what do you think will fit better? If it's a manufacturing organization, which one do you think will be better off?
In manufacturing, where it's pretty formalized, I would say the first one.
See, there you go. So I want you to think that way. Which type of technology, which type of business, what kind of structure will fit better? See, when you listen to a class, that's the key. If you're not able to relate it to a practical situation and think about it, okay, we're talking of span of control. What does it have in terms of implications? If I'm an employee, what kind of implications does it have? If I'm an applicant, what might be the ramifications that I might have to confront? But if it's a different type of technology that's being used, or different type of business that's being discussed here, what kind of thing might happen with different spans of control? So I'm thankful to Chris, because he's telling me if it's a manufacturing organization where you want tighter controls, you might have too many more levels, and that means the span of control should be smaller, right? So that's the key. When you listen, I'm actually telling many things together. So if you're not going to be super attentive, you will say, okay, span can be 4, span can be 8, and that's it. But if you listen to it with intent, you will have to figure out it has implications for all. Not after you become an employee, even when you apply for a job. Most of us tend to say, okay, what's the big deal? And you got to see, for example, I've been seeing websites, free websites, where I can see the structure in different universities. They have even their pay. How much do they pay their board of trustees? Sometimes they don't pay board of trustees. They pay their president, the vice presidents. What do they pay their, provosts and deans? And then what do they pay their senior executive level directors and blah, blah, blah. Why do I have to look at it? Because it tells me how many levels are there, and how much is the span of control, and what's the money that's there. It also talks about revenues and expenses. So how large is the budget? How much opportunities are there for growth? All these things, I just have a casual look in several websites in the United States talking about opportunities for faculty jobs and provost jobs and dean's jobs. I'm just giving you my own experience. So please, for heaven's sake, when you take something in a management class, not just in my class, I would always ask you to think just beyond what is being discussed. Otherwise, because it's Zoom, I'm not even sure who is listening. So you have to pay that much of extra attention to take away from each class things that might benefit you in the future. So we talked about, you had a question, someone?
Yeah, so you said that the second pyramid, it's better as an employee. That's what you said?
Yeah, but assuming certain things, I'm not saying it has to be better in all circumstances.
Yeah, no. I just wanted to know your opinion. Thank you.
I would join in here, but then of course I would see One here might get a higher pay. One here might get a lower pay.
Yeah.
4 might get a higher pay because it's only 4 at the second level. 8 might get much lesser because it's distributed here. You got me?
Yeah, I got you.
So in that case, I'll go here. So I
Okay.
just wanted to contradict my own, stance by saying,
Yeah.
man, there are many assumptions, but I want you to think that way.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
The span is important, not just if you're a manager, how many will you control? Suppose you're one here, you're the first person here. You're talking to 4 people on a daily basis. Suppose you're one here, Kiara. You have to talk to 8. It's a headache. You got me?
Yeah, I got you.
So you can look at it from different perspectives, but it might be more fulfilling, right? More satisfying. Imagine you having a
Yeah.
larger span, 8 people working. This is my team, and you might accomplish more. You might be more creative, and you might enjoy. If you're a people person, you might enjoy talking to a larger set of people, right?
Yeah, it also depends if it's effective and the
Exactly. There is
company.
the culture. There is so many other things.
So
But
yeah, I
that,
got you.
yeah, but you don't want to, be short-sighted and lose the importance of span.
Yeah, of course. Of
Imagine if I put 20 people that Kiara has to, supervise. She's going to say, what am I doing? Am I supposed to do my job, or am I going to look at 20 people if they are doing their job on a daily basis?
Yeah.
You're going to have a hell of a time, right?
Yeah.
But trust me, when you gain experience, your span increases. It's inevitable. You can't simply have 2 people work under you all your life. It'll go to 4, it might go to 6, and then it might get to 8, and then you say, stop. I'm done. This is good team. I don't want a bigger team because it becomes counterproductive. It becomes inefficient anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
I
So there are
got
many things that come into the argument. Every slide opens you a lot of ideas. It's and there's no one perfect answer in management because there's so many assumptions which we're not sure of, right? We spoke briefly about centralized and decentralized structures. Centralization, where every decision has to go to the top and it's getting, done at the top. Decentralization is where authority is given to several people in several positions in the organization, meaning which decision making is faster. You don't have to go up for approval for every small thing. And the level of bureaucracies can be minimized if it's a decentralized organization. But a centralized organization, everything has to be routed to the top. It takes forever from the layers to come back to you with approvals and a green signal for you to implement something. So the time, the communication, the distortion, the manipulation may be higher in centralization. You just don't have elbow space in centralized structures. Decentralization gives you that flexibility, some authority to take decisions at your own level, to try out different things, to react faster to a given situation and solve more issues and more engagement at the lower levels. That's decentralization. I would prefer to work in a decentralized organization. Imagine if I have to get an approval and I have to write to my manager, and my manager has to write to his or her manager, and they have to write to someone else at the top. How long is it going to be before I get an approval saying you can do this? So working in a centralized company, even if they're going to pay me high amount of salary, at some point of time, it's going to be a headache. I would like to have some authority, control my work, control my team, and control the approach. And even if it meant I'll take a little lower fixed pay, but let us all as a team get variable performance-based pay. We'll make up for bonuses, rewards, and incentives that we get because we're efficient as a team. I would prefer a decentralized team. Formalization, that's what I said. I just explained that highly formalized job means minimum amount of discretion, like a worker, because a worker would do the same job every day, like set up the machine, give the specifications, product specifications, feed in all the information onto the computer, and then make sure the raw material is arriving in its correct form and quality. And then you press the button, have the production process go, and take the product to the next level on the assembly line. This is a very standard protocol you're following, of course, keeping the quality and keeping time, use of resources, setting up the machine, as well as taking care of safety standards. if those are the jobs which workers do, it can be highly formalized because they don't need much of discretion there. But some jobs at the higher level, you cannot define them. You cannot program it. They are non-programmed. So says my dean's job, though there might be certain broad guidelines of what is required by her, but the dean might be doing many more things which are not described on the job description, not actually mentioned on the KPIs. The formalization is much lower compared to someone at the bottom of the pyramid. And if you go right at the top, the president's job, it's very difficult to even formalize the job because they're doing much of reputation building, networking, there's being a liaison, and all the kind of roles that are required to be played by the president, they're following that. And you cannot formalize it because there are certain situations that keep cropping up, unexpected scenarios that they have to deal with. And so the amount of formalization is way much lower at the top. So that's what we call as formalization. I spoke about boundary spanning at the beginning of the class. It's about the relationship with people outside. They're formally assigned groups. It could be with other departments, with other stakeholders, including suppliers, government agencies, customers or clients. It could be with several people outside. Yeah, and that's what is called a boundary span. You have a lot of internal communication, and then you have a lot of external communication as well. We have some examples of common structures, a simple structure. This is a classical example of a simple structure. You have an owner manager, small organizations, the structure is simple, not many layers in the company. You don't have another layer here. You don't have other layers here below. It's one owner manager who is there, and you have salespeople doing the job, and one person who is the cashier right at the corner here. So what is a simple structure? It is simple, fast, flexible, inexpensive to maintain. Accountability is clear. Weakness, difficult to maintain anything other than small organizations because they're simple. If you talk about Unilever or Procter and Gamble, and these companies, their presence is there, I don't know, 100+ countries. You can't have a simple structure. There are different product lines, different geographical regions, and different departments. How do we have a simple structure? It's just not possible. But for small companies, startup companies, simple structure is simple, it's efficient. And another weakness is it's risky. Everything depends on one person there, the owner, manager, Jack Gold. If that person does great, the team does great. If that person does crazy stuff, then you're in trouble. So that's about simple structure. Bureaucracy, I just mentioned that, is characterized by too much of standardization or formalization, a lot of centralization. So, highly routine operating tasks, very formalized rules and regulations, task groups into functional departments, centralized authority, narrow spans of control. Many organizations in the world still have strong bureaucracies, meaning which there's no flexibility, no freedom, and everything has to be routed all the way to the top of the pyramid, and everything has to be permitted from the top. Unless you have a clear green signal from the top, you just cannot mobilize any kind of action. And the span of control in the first pyramid, the narrow span of control, it's very steep. The number of levels is so many. Again, Kiara, the example that you're talking of, which one is a better choice in terms of structure? Shortest narrow spans have too many layers. That means the last person in the organization has to go over 6 layers before something, big, substantial has to be changed. And that might make it bureaucratic. Not necessarily it has to be, but it might make it bureaucratic, more bureaucracy. Strength of bureaucracy is because, ability to perform standardized activities very efficiently. If it's a pure manufacturing process, like how Chris was talking about, simple product, no need of customization, no changing of the specifications, I think bureaucracy will work because they're fast, efficient, they'll have the same standards. Weaknesses, subunit conflicts, unit goals dominate, obsessive behavior, covering weak management. There are plenty of issues with bureaucracies, communication issues, decision-making issues. You just don't have an open culture. You're not very happy working in companies that are extremely bureaucratic. Please do see that you should have a fit between you as a person and the company as a culture. So what kind of structure do they have? Are they very bureaucratic? You're going to struggle. If you're one person who needs flexibility, you enjoy that freedom at the workplace. You're very creative as a person. And imagine you find yourself in a company that's loaded with bureaucracies. You're going to struggle there because everything takes time, a lot of arguments, and you have to reach to the top, write many times over, many sessions for convincing, persuading some decision to happen in favor of you. You're going to struggle there. The matrix organization is like many universities have. Suppose we have the example that I can give you is we have let's go to that slide here. Yeah, here it is. You have accounting. These are departments: accounting department, finance department, information systems department, management department. I might belong here, marketing department. But if you look at the other side on the x-axis, undergraduate program, which we have, master's program, which we have, PhD program, which we want to have. There's plenty of research that we do, executive development. We do a lot of executive training and stuff. We do pro bono workshops for a lot of communities in Long Island and New York City area, in the tri-state area. We do plenty of community service. Now, who does all these and who does serve on all these departments? People from accounting serve in all these programs. People from finance department serve in all these programs. Information systems are there in all the programs. Management is it's cross-cutting. Now, basically, this way of organizing your College of Business Administration is a classical case of matrix organization, because you're having on one axis departments. This is organizing work into departments. And then we're also having the other way to service the product. What kind of products do we have? Undergraduate programs is a product or a service. Master's programs are like a product or a service. PhD is like a product or a service. I'll use the word either product or service, both will apply. Suppose we have a great product, it'll sell. And of course, what is that we are offering is a service. We teach, we don't give you something tangible. We give you knowledge, we impart skills, we make you more employable. So research, suppose that's a great outcome. That's a great product of our faculty and students. Executive development, we have a great training product, customized training programs for specific companies and industries. That's a great product. We have identified what community, the larger community requires, and we have tailor-made our community service programs to benefit the larger community and their specific needs. So that way of organizing your School of Business or College of Business is using what we call as a matrix structure, not just purely on departments, but on the kind of products and services that we have got to offer. Any questions here? You have other alternative design options like virtual organization, and then what's happening today, I think, is virtual organizations. I know so many of my friends who work with the software companies, and they're all working in virtual organizations right now. It's because of the pandemic, of course, and plenty of it is doable virtually. And, and that's possible because of technology. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had that. It could be used in typically small core organizations that outsource major business functions. But I think today everything can be done virtually. Most of what we do is doable also virtually, except for logistics and supply chain, for example. You can't do that virtually. You still have to procure, you need to move goods, you need to have transportation, plenty of logistics. You can't do it virtually. You can order, you can do transactions, you can transfer money. All that is possible virtually, but goods still have to flow, have to be transported physically. That's why logistics have been hit so hard because of the pandemic. And all, any research that you do which is pertaining to logistics and supply chain will be a seller. It'll be a hot cake, because that's an area where I think the whole world is having problems. Manufacturing has problems because their supplies have been hit. Say consumers have been hit because groceries and the supplies have been hit. Inflation has become a problem because supplies have been hit. So supplies and logistics and supply chain, I think that's, and look at the human side of it. If you want transportation to happen, you want logistics to continue. What about the human side? What is the risk that people have because they have to drive goods and services? They have to do home deliveries. There's so much of risk. The human side is also to be taken care of because of the pandemic, right? It's just not the infrastructure, not the great, companies that are there in logistics and supply chain, but we need to look at the stress that's being caused on the human elements that are involved in logistics and supply chain. So virtual structures are possible because you have an executive group and you have several other groups that can work from different factories in South Korea, say procurement from Malaysia or Thailand, commission sales across the globe, advertising agency from the United States, independent research and development consulting firm that is off in Germany. And they're all tied up to one executive group, which is maybe in the US. All this can happen because of a different way that you want to do business. I think that's true with every business. Say, for example, IKEA. IKEA is a Swedish company, right? Can somebody confirm?
Yeah.
I think they are Swedish.
Yeah.
Yes.
And look at the number of countries they procure their products from. You go into IKEA and walk through, you will find products made in China, made in Thailand, made in India, made in Malaysia, across the globe. And they have their presence everywhere. So obviously, it's a great company to say, though it's physically locationed and it involves a lot of formal structures as well, it has this virtual structure in the way they procure and the way they make their assortments. You go to IKEA, it's very difficult to walk off from IKEA not buying anything, right? Because they have almost every aspect of your daily life covered. So they're doing great because of that, and the convenience, and the say the price as well. I've been to Bob's Furniture. I find all the furniture great, really high quality, extremely durable. But that I don't have my own home in the US. So am I going to invest that kind of money in buying furniture for a home that I might not stay for a long time? Then I go to IKEA, I'll spend like 30% of what I would have spent in Bob's Furniture, and I can furnish my entire house. So I go with something that's that much more affordable. It can serve my needs currently. Yeah, if I build my own home in the US sometime in the future, I would prefer to go with more of Bob's Furniture and maybe little of IKEA rather than go all IKEA. But see, IKEA gives me convenience and it caters to all kinds of segments. And if you want to slot into a consumer segment that's on borderline economy kind of thing, IKEA is the best place to go, I believe. And then the way they, design their layout, when you walk through, there are kitchens, there are little, studio apartments, which are all there. In a little space, they have a living room, a study area, a place, a wash area, a kitchen or a pantry kind of thing. And you have your restrooms and everything is there. And it's like everything in 610 square feet, some as less as 370 square feet. It was like, wow, how could you organize that much in 370 square feet? A nice area, those ideas are great. If you're alone, living all by yourself, how great if you can just furnish your entire small space in ways that you can efficiently use that space and contribute to, good living. So I can think virtual structure is something that IKEA possibly uses in some way. Team structures, they eliminate the chain of command. Everybody's talking to everyone else. Not possible everywhere. You need smart people, responsible people, highly skilled people, complementary skills. You have such kind of people. You just can remove off all the vertical and horizontal boundaries, and you can create a team structure where communication channels are very strong, external barriers are broken, and you can flatten the hierarchy because it's not really required. And then the status differential between one employee and another employee is barely existent because everybody's talking to everyone. Even leadership responsibilities are shared. I remember somebody in my previous class when we were talking leadership, like, do we really require a leader? I think it's not really required if you have a great team. You might still have a formally designated leader of a team, but the leader is just like a figure there because you need somebody. but otherwise the leadership responsibilities are pretty much shared. So when fully operational, the team structure may break down even geographic barriers. It's possible because you're a team. And I've seen many software companies do that. They're doing projects in UK, they're doing projects in Australia, they do projects in the US, they do projects in Asia. It's because the team structure simply breaks down all the barriers. The same team can be implementing projects in all these different countries. You don't need geographic departments, you just need a team that cares and takes care of so many projects together at the same time. Learning organizations, you can go downsizing. The goal of new organization forms to be lean, focused, and flexible. See, these are the terms. Lean, they don't want too many people doing nothing out there. And they need to be focused, they need to be flexible, and they need to also be innovative. That's how learning organizations are. They don't hire too many people to lay off at a later date, but they're hiring the right number of people. And if they have made mistakes and hired a lot more, they would go with downsizing options. And why do they downsize? Because they want an efficient organization, a lean organization that's extremely focused and flexible, and also in support of innovation that they are willing to pursue. Downsizing is a systematic effort to make organizations really efficient. That's what I was saying. And by selling off certain business units that are not doing that great, they might not operate in several locations. I've seen plenty of times, say banks shut down some of their operations in certain locations because they just know everything is now online.
Dare you say that Dunkin' is better than Starbucks? Like, you can say Starbucks.
Trend, if you're asking me questions, that's fine.
So I
Otherwise, you
agree
have to
that
mute.
Starbucks sucks, but I don't agree that
Okay, so downsizing can be done either, when it involves decisions with investments, but every time you, do investments, you could possibly downsize because you're cutting down some of your existing operations, you're making efficient decisions towards restructuring. Even if you're making extra investments, you want those investments to get you the kind of returns that you're hoping for. And downsizing also includes a lot of communication. And which means even when you're, say, firing people, laying off people, it requires plenty of communication to your existing employees, making sure that employee morale doesn't get hurt, also communicating to your external stakeholders, your shareholders who have invested in you about the decisions to downsize. And another, way of thing that you want to discuss while downsizing is participation, the kind of assistance that organizational units require when you downsize. So suppose my team goes down from 8 members to 6 members. Who will be doing the work of the other 2 who have been laid off, for example? So obviously, we need to be, making sure that we have participation from the rest of the people. And we also want to make sure that we have assistance offered to them. It's funny because Trin is talking and she's not aware she's talking. Okay. So another very important thing in today's class is these two, mechanistic structure versus organic structure. This is coming in the final exam. I think structure is such an important thing when you're looking to working in companies, either as a manager or a leader. Structure is super important. If you look at a mechanistic structure, this actually resembles to what Chris was referring to, a manufacturing organization. High amount of specialization, rigid departments, clear chain of command, narrow spans of control, highly centralized, extremely formalized with rules and norms clearly defined. That is what makes a mechanistic structure, and it's generally represented like this. But if you're talking of an organic model, something that is very fluid and it evolves over a period of time, it's cross-functional teams, cross-hierarchical teams, free flow of information and communication, wide spans of control, decentralization, not much of rules and norms that control you. It's low formalization. So make sure, if you're that kind of person who enjoys being in a manufacturing firm, I think you're okay, even if you're dealing with a mechanistic model and you are happy joining them. But if you're a person who needs that space, be innovative, have a challenge, new challenge every day, and do something that is exciting every day, you might want to choose a business and a company that is more organic. Okay. And that also addresses the fact, if you're a manager here, you're not going to complain about specialization, departmentalization, or chain of command and narrow span, because this is a mechanistic firm. And the kind of business that we do requires a mechanistic model. You cannot complain about it. You might be a misfit here. That's your problem. You need to get out of here and find a more organic kind of business or model where you want to, work for a longer period of time. So that's what we were just discussing, mechanistic versus organic. Most current strategy frameworks focus on three: innovation, cost minimization, and imitation. If you talk of innovation, which do you think is a better model? Mechanistic or organic? If my strategy for my business is innovation, which model is better?
The organic one.
Yeah, there you go. Tristan has been listening. Thank you, Tristan. So if you're focused on innovation, organic. Cost minimization, what do you think might work better?
The mechanistic.
See, there you go. Greater control, cut on cost, make sure you're keeping, you're on top of every activity, and make sure if there are, some activities which are escalating the cost for you, can you eliminate them? Can you replace them with more cost efficient activities? So cost minimization, mechanistic structures better off. I'm not saying organic might not work, but you have a better chance with a mechanistic structure. Suppose if it's imitation, we have a leader in the we have the leader in the market, and we are somebody who is trying to imitate them. We want to be like them. We are not yet there. What do you think will be a better structure for us?
Mechanistic.
Yeah, mechanistic with a little bit of organic, elements, right? It's a mixed hybrid kind of structure, because you might never be an Apple, you might never be a Samsung, but you want to be someone who can find a space that are occupied by Apple and Samsung and Huawei and Xiaomi and all these great big companies. You still want to make some space for yourself. You have to be organic, innovative, but you have to be really good with cutting down the cost, controlling your processes. So a lot of mechanistic elements, with some department at least being organic. That's what is the next slide about. So if it's innovation, you want organic, a loose structure, low specialization, low formalization, decentralized. It supports innovation. Cost minimization, you want control, extensive work specialization, high amount of formalization, extremely centralized, so cut costs. Imitation, it's a combination of both, mix of loose and with tight properties, tight controls over current activities and loose controls for new innovative ideas. Otherwise, how do you compete with those big companies? Size of the company, that has a bearing on the kind of structure. Suppose you have a very large company. What do you think might work for you? Which kind of structure, whether it's mechanistic or organic? Very large company, 15,000 employees.
Mechanistic.
See, there you go. If you just let them be organic, it'll become, a total confusion there, right? It may be total chaotic. So you want to control it much more. And so mechanistic might help you, at least some elements of mechanistic. I can't say you have to be fully mechanistic. Some departments can still stay organic. If you think R&D and research and development or innovation, whatever research departments you might have, keep them organic if you want to. Smaller, manage them separately, give them that extra space and freedom. So size of the organization has a huge impact. If it's small, much more easier to manage, it can still remain organic. Technology and structure relationship. Suppose, Tristan, I'll ask you because you're answering all those questions. Suppose every product that you produce has to be customized to the client's requirements. What structure is better?
This one.
Every product or every service that you provide has to be different, has to be customized to the client's requirements. What structure might be better?
Organic.
There you go. Suppose we are a firm that offers software solutions for different clients. Each client is different. Each client has their own business, their own requirements. So my software solutions for this particular client are different from my solutions for another client. We need to have greater amount of organic structure. I'm not saying everything has to be organic. Several of your departments still have to be organic because the customization is so granular. It's particularly for each customer or client's requirements. But if I'm producing, say, the same mouse, Whatever computer peripherals that I'm manufacturing is the same product. Every day in and day out, I manufacture this. You don't have to be organic. Be more mechanistic. Use the same standard design, have extreme stringent quality controls, specify, be very formalized, be very centralized, train your workers to be specialized. Let them produce as many of these products as quickly as they can, conforming to the quality standards. You're good to go. So more control, because there's not much of customization here. So even the technology has to match with your structure. Size of the number of people that you have matches with the structure. See, everything, what your strategy, is it innovation? Is it cost minimization? Is it, what imitation? Even your strategy should meet your structure. So structure is such an important thing. We tend to lose focus on structure. We think, oh, it's just having somebody on the top, few people here, then few people, more people under them and more people under them. No, why are you following that structure? Does it actually, help your strategy? Does it help achieving the goals? Does it, conform with your technologies? Does it help you serve your clients better or customers better? So these are very important things about structure. So there you go, strategy, size, technology, environment. Suppose you're having a, very turbulent environment. Tristan, again, question to you. Suppose you have a crisis situation. What kind of structure do you think might work in this case?
Mechanistic.
There you go. See, he's thinking. So if he is having a very horrible situation, it's getting really out of control. You can be organic. You can tell people to go guys, do whatever you think you want to. You have to take charge. It has to become more towards mechanistic. So that's why all these factors will determine whether you want to have mechanistic, organic, or a mix of both. And they have an impact on performance and satisfaction. How do they fit with your clients? How do they fit with your employees? How do they fit with achieving organizational goals? And of course, moderated by individual differences in culture. There's no going back on it. Suppose you go to countries like, say, Japan, it is much more decentralized and distributed leadership, and the culture is collectivistic culture. Teams are a natural thing in Japan. Much more organic structures can be possible in Japan. But if you move to the West, where the culture is more individualistic, more control, more, organic structures are that much more difficult. You will find tendencies of mechanistic structure, bureaucracies will set in, and to stay organic, like how Google tries to, and has been successful in doing so, you need to build a strong organizational culture. So culture, yeah, I mean, you cannot discount culture from all our discussions. So we've done with structures basically. So if you have any questions here, you can ask me.